Hello and welcome to the EDHRECast, where we're all about Commander, data, and dad jokes. I'm Joey Schultz and I'm joined by my pun-tastic co-hosts. Up first, he considered making a super expensive Momo-friendly flyer deck, but he decided not to because, as it turns out, Momo money, Momo problems, it's Matt Morgan.
Interesting. Well, speaking of interesting, so my mom recently told me that I really loved alphabet soup when I was little, and I don't really remember that. I really do think that she's putting words in my mouth.
Goodness. You know, okay, one second, Matt. I'm going to roll for, 2d6 worth of psychic damage for that one.
Psychic damage, of course, yes.
Yeah. All right, up next, he's heard of Sozin's Comet. In fact, he knows Sozin's Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. It's Dana Roach.
Interestingly enough, Joey, I have a reindeer question for you.
Oh, no.
What did Santa say to the drunk reindeer when he caught him drinking his scotch?
Goodness, what?
Nothing. He's a reindeer. Being drunk doesn't mean he can talk. Just doesn't say anything at all.
The anti-joke strikes again.
Yeah. Oh, no. Are we in for a whole new year then?
Yeah, right,
I guess all I have to say to that is, oh, dear. All right.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
Fellas, we are here talking about the most important commanders, most impactful commanders of the sets of 2025. Kind of a nice time to wrap up and see how this year went in the world of EDH.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always a good time at the end of the year to sum up everything, see what the year was, and maybe look at some of the best played cards and all that kind of fun stuff while we're here too.
Mm-hmm. This is sort of inspired by a recent article from Benny Smith. He's got a fantastic article over on EDHREC, also going over what appear to be some of the best new commanders of 2025. We wanted to take our spin on that same subject, looking at the most popular commanders that we saw in each set, the most impactful cards, but then also kind of getting the vibe of how we thought this year went for the format of Commander. Guys, shall we just start at the very beginning with Aetherdrift?
If we could start somewhere else, actually, I wouldn't mind.
if we could start our engines right here at Aetherdrift.
All right, so how do you really feel about Aetherdrift then there, Matt?
I mean, Aetherdrift to me was the same kind of set as last year Murders at Karlov Manor was, where it was just like, oh yeah, that set did happen this year. And like, it was forgettable. Sure. I don't think it really had a huge impact. And like, when you look at a lot of the cards too, you kind of get the feeling that like that just kind of rung true across the entire format, which like outside of a new addition to the Verge lands, I really don't know a ton that happened in Aetherdrift that like mattered.
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. First of all, like, do I like the set as a whole holistically? Not especially, for the same reason Matt said. It felt like an extension of the Murders at Karlov Manor / Thunder Junction sets that I didn't really care for much from last year too. I just want a cool plane. Like, it doesn't need to have a gimmick, and the gimmick I found distracts way more than it helps with anything the set's doing, for me at least. Yeah. That said, I felt like there were more pieces out of Aetherdrift for decks, if you discount whether or not I like the aesthetics of it or not, than there were from maybe Karlov Manor or Thunder Junction. I felt like it was a much more successful set in terms of like producing useful cards maybe than the ones from last year, but I didn't like anything about it in terms of it as a cohesive set.
Yeah, Murders at Karl Marx Manor did not do a whole lot of favors for. But when we look over the Aetherdrift stuff, the number one commander from the set was Hashiton the Scarab's Fist, which is currently showing a respectable 19,000 decks in the database. The number two commander was Mendicant Core Guidelight, 11,000 decks in the database. That was an Azorius commander doing some artifacty types of things. And Matt, you mentioned the Verge lands. Those were the most popular cards from that set for sure. They're showing up in between like 6 to 8% of decks that can play them. That's about 70,000 to 80,000 decks out of the 1.1 million decks that could play those lands. Mm-hmm. Overall, though, this we'll see is a kind of tepid entry data-wise compared to the rest of the stuff that we see this year. So even though Aetherdrift was the first set of this year, those numbers are a lot lower than much of the other stuff that we're going to see for the remainder of 2025.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to the point we made about how this too, I think us as well as a lot of other people felt like, I hate to use the term hat set because it feels loaded and there was a good bit of discourse on that, but it does have that vibe where a lot of folks like felt a little bit dismissive of it, I think, because of it feeling like that. And It was just less popular.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the top cards from the sets too, 5 of the 6 top cards are lands that we talked about. Then you have to go to Monument of Endurance, which is in the top 5, which is an artifact, so it has a lot of opportunities to be played in a deck. But then after those 6 cards, it's another land. It's Muruganda Raceway, and so you have to get down to Full Throttle before you get into a colored card that's going to go into a whole lot of decks there. And it just feels really weird to me how just like you have to go so far down. And like even then, you have Full Throttle, Unstoppable Plan, and Stock Up. Those are the only 3 spells colored cards in the top 12 for the entire set. That's kind of wild to me.
Yeah. And like some of those cards are cool. Full Throttle, Extra Combats, that's pretty neat. Yeah. Stock Up's great. That's one of the best cards, like common and uncommon of the year. There are a couple of gems here, but I do think that we're going to see a lot stronger numbers for the rest of the year. Even though this one had the longest time to accrue data and stuff, we're going to see a lot stronger stuff as we move on. Such as, for however tepid we felt about Aetherdrift, the next set in chronological order was Tarkir Dragonstorm. And we just all got smiles on our faces as soon as we said Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Yeah, we did.
What a set this was.
It's what we want from a Magic set, which is for a Magic set to feel like a Magic set, I think, a little bit.
Novel idea, Dan.
It took a plane that we all liked, and it advanced the story of that plane in a way that felt consistent with that world as it has been built. It was just a plane on Tarkir again, advancing the story. That's very simple, and it's what I wanted. Like particularly coming off Aetherdrift, just a return to a really solid traditional Magic set that had a bunch of good cards in it too. Like everything about it landed perfectly with me.
Yeah, Tarkir Dragonstorm was kind of like how I felt about Bloomborough last year, where it's just like, if it weren't for this other set we're going to talk about later, this could have been my favorite set of the year. Like if you would have placed Dragonstorm in like 2023, it could have been absolutely fantastic. But like you had a lot of cool cards, like Dana said. The legendary creatures were super cool. They explored new mechanics and like felt like they did a really cool job with it. Then it made sure it fit in the plane as well, which Aetherdrift felt very forced, whereas it felt super, super natural in Dragonstorm. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about it is like, it felt like home. It felt like a Magic set that like I had grown to love. And this is me being a boomer. I fully know that, but it just felt cozy and warm and fun.
Yeah, well, and we look at the top commanders there. Teval, the balanced scale, is showing nearly 22,000 decks. Probably will have reached 22,000 decks in the database by the time this episode goes out. And that was the top commander there, doing a whole bunch of Sultai, Graveyard, Zombie, Recursion, land stuff. Very powerful value engine there. The number 2 commander was Zurgo Stormrender with 13,000 decks in the database, doing a bunch of Mardu tokensy types of things. Like, those are classic archetypes, but they evolved upon them in ways that were clearly very interesting to players. And I love the way that you guys phrase that as like, it felt like coming home. I think that was very strongly indicated by the data that we're seeing here. Like already the number 1 commander from this set, even though it was out for a shorter period of time, has more decks than the number 1 commander from the previous set that came before it. So like that's worth taking note of. That's important.
Well, and sometimes with the set too, like I'll look at because I have like a spreadsheet of each set, and I'll show what cards I've added from that set. Yeah. And sometimes I will go back and look, and you'll say, oh, I added a good amount of cards from that set to this deck, but then I'll go through and I'm like, well, I added a bunch of lands, right? Like there'll be one utility land that I wound up putting in like 12 decks, and then a cycle of dual lands like that, that particular dual land went in a bunch of decks. So like it gets a little bit misleading. Oh, hey, Stock Up is in I put that in every blue deck, Looking at Dragonstorm in my list here, there's just a ton of cards that aren't necessarily like cards that are universally Stock Up being good in every single blue deck or something, right? There's just a lot of ones like, in this one particular deck, Corey Mountain Monastery is really solid. In this one particular deck, I liked Zenith Festival a lot. In this one particular deck, I liked Wild Ride. In this one deck, Herd Heirloom was really good. Like there was just a mix. There was a bunch of cards that like were good in 1 or 2 decks versus 1 or 2 cards that were good in a bunch of decks.
Herd Heirloom is legit, by the way. If you haven't played that one yet, it's a green mana rock that can only tap for mana for a creature spell, but can also give surprise trample to a creature and also let you draw a card when that creature hits someone.
Draw cards, yeah.
Great.
It's very threatening when you're just like, there's several big creatures coming at me. Which one's going to get trampled? They're going to draw. Like, I love that card.
Yeah.
And that's not even the most popular card from the set, actually, but it's still fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I mean, everything in this set was super fun. Like, there were so many homes, and I think having multicolored sieges that played a factor for sure. Like, you see a lot of them in the top played cards. The most played card in the set is Mysterized Village, which that card's sweet. And I know CEDH had 2 really good cards from this set because you had Mysterized Village that's able to like give your spells on countability, but then also Voice of Victory tree is just such a pain to get out from underneath, where it just keeps your opponents from casting spells on your turn. And also, like, if you're playing tokens, it has a home there. And then Elspeth Stormslayer, like, double tokens. Doubling anything is always going to be good. So putting that on a Planeswalker, who knew that was going to be a popular card?
Right.
Anointed Procession on a Planeswalker that also makes tokens is wild.
There's so many fun cards in here. And like, there's even some cards like, I know you guys did an episode not too long ago where you were talking about cards that kind of underperform. They don't play as well as they read. Even Nature's Rhythm, which to me is one of those cards. I've tried to make it good, and it feels, I don't know, tapping my biggest thing down never felt great, but it still is in a ton of decks, and a ton of players are latching onto this card.
Yeah.
Cards from the Tarkir precons too. Colossal Grave Reaver is one of my favorite reanimation targets now. Like milling you and pulling back creatures that you just milled. It's incredible. And the Will of cycle is also really fantastic. Really inventive, really fun, really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tarkir Dragonstorm was phenomenal. And Matt, like you said, there's a world in which this would have been my number one set of the year. But as we'll soon see, there are other fantastic sets that also came out this year. I'm happy to see the stuff that's reached the top here. Teval the Balance Scale obviously has made such an impact this year and ends up being one of the most popular commanders of the year as well. Eclipsed only by a few that come up in our next set, which we'll get to after a couple of quick shout-outs from our sponsors.
We are excited to be teamed up with Dragon Shield moving into 2026. We all got a peek at the Landfall series of sleeves featuring fetch lands from Tarkir at Magicon Atlanta this fall, and when we posted pics on social media about them, we all had friends messaging us to try to get them sleeves from their favorite color pair. They just came out last week, and like seriously, everyone I know has like gotten that has a 2-color deck has like tried to get those fetch lands for the appropriate deck. So that really resonated with people, and it's super cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it is the first time that Dragon Shield has been able to do licensed Magic art. Like, it used to be exclusive, but now it's something that you can get on Dragon Shield sleeves. So like, it's win-win for me, because not only can you use Dragon Shield sleeves, but you can also have like awesome art that like comes on Magic cards itself. It's super, super cool. And just the best thing about that too is you can use code EDHREC when you're buying those sleeves to get yourself a discount, and it supports the show while you're doing it. It's like, it's just a fantastic thing. We're super hyped for them. I'm so glad people can actually get their hands on them now too.
Yeah. I wish my first time doing anything was as gorgeous as these sleeves are.
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Matt said, use the promo code EDHREC in all lowercase at dragonshield.com to get 5% off your purchase. It helps the show, and it helps keep your cards safe.
And if you want another way that you can support the show, you can do so by subscribing on YouTube. You can leave a review over on your local podcast app. Any of those ways, nice free thing that actually helps a ton when you think about it. But also you can head over to patreon.com/EDHRECast, where you have all sorts of patron levels as just a nice way of saying thank you for your support over there on Patreon. So whether you want to join our Discord community that's always talking about the preview season that is always going on, whatever that new Magic set is that they're showing off, you can go in there and talk with like-minded individuals over at our Discord, which is only available for Patreons. So make sure you head over to patreon.com/EDHRECast to get all that and more. And there is a nice little perk over there too, where we give a very special shout out to a patron just for signing up and just for supporting us over there on Patreon. So this week we are going to give a very special shout out to Brooksy, who I'm guessing you're a hockey player if you're going by Brooksy. Brooksy, thank you so much for your support. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you, Brooksy. Thank you all for helping and supporting the show. Guys, we're going to get into the next set this year. All right, I'm going to say it quietly because I think that Matt might just explode with happiness and giggles as soon as I say Final Fantasy.
It's the set of the year. That's all I got to say.
It was a really impactful set. I think it would be very difficult to argue that this was anything other than the set of the year. Number one commander from the set being Y'shtola Knights Blessed, the number one commander of this year. It's got 27,000 decks to its name, and right behind it at number 2 is Vivi Ornithir with 22,000, maybe even 23,000 by the time that this episode comes out. Those are like the 2 most popular new commanders of this entire year. Those are at the top of the heap. Even the number 2 commander from this set is beating out the number 1 commander from the previous set.
Yes.
This set was massively impactful and really joyful. We all had a fantastic time with it.
Yeah, of course. But there's also 15 plus games of inspiration to draw from too. Like, this casts such a wide net, and it caught every fish over in this sea for sure. Like, I love, this is not just my set of the year, but probably the set of the decade. And that's even over Lord of the Rings, which is like, that was my other big, like...
It's wild to hear you say that, yeah.
Final Fantasy, I'm putting on a pedestal as like one of my favorite sets of all time. Like, it hit every chord that it needed to. They're the characters, they're powerful cards, they told the stories really well. Like, cannot say enough about how much I really just enjoyed Final Fantasy. I love it. Love the set.
It's so good it's rendering us speechless. Like that's
Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Well, so I'm assuming one of the goals with some of the Universes Beyond stuff is like the company who's giving the license to Magic is hoping that draws interest from Magic players into whatever the IP is. I don't know if that's ever worked for me in the past until this set where like it made me want to go play the Final Fantasy games I hadn't played in the past. Or I had forgotten about it. It's like I went back and have started and did a playthrough of old Final Fantasy games just from the set. Like it made me want to do that. It made me nostalgic for those games. It made me interested in the ones I didn't get a chance to play previously. So yeah, like that's how much I liked it. It made me want to go play the games again.
That's really cool. I like that. And honestly, when we look over the most impactful cards from the set, the stuff that goes into the 99, one of the most impactful is the Earth Crystal. But like the entire crystal cycle is up there near the top. The Earth Crystal is showing up in 5% of decks that can play it. That's 75,000 decks out of the 1.4 million decks that include green that the Earth Crystal could go into. Discounting your spells, increasing your +1 counters. But then you've also got the Fire Crystal, the Buster Sword, fantastic new equipment. And we noticed land cycles in previous things as well. Here, the land cycles are really interesting because they were adventure lands that have spell effects and you can play them a little bit later. And we see those rising up near the top as well. And they've been really surprising. A very like practical, gentle, but meaningful amount of value. Can't forget how cool it is to see the Saga creatures too. Summon Bahamut is so incredible. A lot of the cards that have risen to the top here maintain interest. I keep on scrolling down this list. I'm very impressed the entire way down.
Like how Traveling Chocobo, which arguably is one of the most powerful cards in the set. I think just for what it does for landfall decks, it's crazy powerful. Adventurer's Inn is played in more decks, and that's just a random common that just fits the theme of what Final Fantasy games do. I think that is such a testament to how much people just love Final Fantasy games that they're playing Adventurer's Inn more than stuff that's super powerful like Traveling Chocobo, like Cloud Midgard Mercenary, or even Sephiroth. And price makes a difference in there. That's definitely a factor.
For sure.
But that's not the only factor. And it's so wild to me. Just some of these cards, like they're super powerful, but like, man, people just like the flavor of the set.
And like I mentioned with Dragonstorm, looking at my list of like cards I added to decks, it's just a really like robust selection here. You know, I look at my equipment deck and I added a couple pieces of equipment, you know, Buster Sword and Wrecking Ball Arm. And, you know, I scroll down a little bit further and like, oh, this is the deck where I put Observed Stasis in as a removal spell. And here's the one that has the Wind Crystal. And, you know, oh, there's a couple of Blue-Black Dragons for my Blue-Black Dragon deck. And there's a couple of Knights for my Boros Knight deck. And like, it was very much a set where like I'm just putting different cards. It's not a set where I'm putting, you know, 10 copies of 2 cards. It's a set where I've got 30 different cards spread among 20 decks. In addition to things that like, oh, and I really wish I had a spot for this, or like, oh, that commander's interesting. Maybe someday I'll build it. It was just the most diverse set maybe I've ever seen in terms of the amount of different cards I wanted and different things that I just thought were interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Man, it's so just like a testament to how fun and how good this set was that there's all these commons and uncommons getting played over these like big, powerful mythic spells. You're like, Blitzball was a card that surprised me with how great that was. And like in the right deck, Blitzball is fan-freaking-tastic. I have that in my Squall deck, the Seed Mercenary, where I'm all about recurring small items. And so Blitzball is such a fantastic little synergy there. And like, there's just so many of those fun things, just these nods to the games that are just so perfectly executed on the cards. I cannot say enough about it.
I've got a sleeper hit from this set.
Okay.
I got to shout out Genova, the Golgari commander who distributes +1 counters and then draws you a butt ton of cards if that creature that she gave counters to dies on your turn. I built that deck and I had to take it apart because it was way too powerful. Like even the stuff that isn't getting as much love from this set is still very, very impactful. So shout out to that one too.
And like it still was a fun draft environment too. Like when we got to draft this, I got to do a little bit, did some pre-releases. It's not like there was just everything was so scattered because it was supporting so many commander decks and so many different, you know, strategies. There was actually like a draft environment there that I thought was a lot of fun. I had, you know, a lot of fun getting to do it. Man, it's so just like flavor is just on point. I just cannot say enough about it.
A couple of friends of mine have got boxes of this, so I've drafted this like 3 times with them, and it's been enjoyable every time. Really diverse format to like try out and flex with new things. But not just the draft environment, as you were saying. Also the precons. They slapped.
The precons were so good.
Dragonstorm. Yeah. The Tarkir Dragonstorm decks were also fantastically fun to play against each other. But dang if the Final Fantasy decks weren't an absolute joy to play against each other as well. I really enjoyed what they did with those too. And the directions that they went with each of them. My husband just randomly came home with an Ishtola deck one day. It was just like, oh, okay, cool. And now we're playing Magic stuff together a lot more because of how cool it was. So joy all the way down.
I just counted. I have 22 decks currently right now, and 11 of the 22 got 3 or more cards from Final Fantasy. So more than half of my decks got at least 3 cards.
Amount. Yeah. Well, and like this got me brewing a bunch of decks too. Like I don't build a bunch of decks. Like I took apart 4 different decks to make space in my collection to have more Final Fantasy commanders. And like that's not even counting the holiday scene boxes that like those hit the heartstrings too. And like not the new Noctis that came out from those, I built that one instantly. Like I'm just this has me building so many decks just because I love the characters, I love the flavor, and just they're just fun commanders to play. We need to move on because I'm going to not shut up about how good the set is.
Yeah, our vibe on Final Fantasy, set of the year. But of course, what else could it be? That moves us on to what I think is probably like the sleeper hit set of the year, and that's Edge of Eternities. Outer space, bunch of stuff going on there. I didn't expect a whole lot from Edge of Eternities, and it really proved me wrong.
We're seeing a similar pattern. I think last year the sets we liked were like all one after another, where we went from Bloomburrow into Duskmourn into Foundations, and Foundation was the one we were like kind of shocked how much we liked it. Edge of Eternities filled that role this year, like with 3 in a row again that we all loved. Edge of Eternities was also one I didn't have very high expectations for, and loved everything about it. The art is gorgeous, like notably stand out good looking art in this set. A lot of weird space stuff that like catches your eye. I thought it was just a beautiful set. A lot of good cards. I was not at all convinced I would like Magic in Space. They made it work for me in a way that I was not expecting at all. Just the set hit for me unexpectedly, and great third set of the run of 3 that we've got now 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I think sleeper set is a really good way to put this joy in, but that's also like we're forgetting that like a sleeper set almost arguably could have been Dragonstorm too. And putting this next to Dragonstorm is like such a high compliment just from all of our sentiments about that. But I absolutely did love this. This had so many just really, really cool cards that felt like they fit thematically along with what you might be doing in space. I like Consult the Star Charts was a card that just really performed well for me pretty much every time I got to see it.
Right.
There's cards like Cosmic Grand Zenith that like they look like they fit in space, but they also feel like they fit on a Magic card. It didn't feel like a couple other sets that we had last year or this year where everything kind of felt forced and just like didn't really fit, and everything just lined up in Edge of Eternities. And I really liked the play patterns. This was probably one of the more fun pre-releases I actually had getting to play in too. Like the limited set and the limited environment was a lot of fun too. And also, there's just a ton of powerful cards, in which that go so far.
Probably one of the most powerful precons they've ever made. The number one commander from the set was Hearthhold the World Seed. That was the Jund lands and sacrifice deck. That's got about nearly 15,000 decks to its name at the time of recording here. That's the number one commander from this set. And again, as we're moving into like later on in the year, these numbers are inevitably going to be lower than some of the stuff that started off the year. Number two commander from this set was Ragost Deft Gastronaut. That is the Boros lobster who throws food at people. 11,000 decks to that commander's name. But then when we look at the stuff in the 99, Ice Till Explorer is the number one card of the set. 7% of decks that can't play it are doing so. That is the green, you can play lands from your graveyard and also play extra lands, and also you'll mill to find even more lands when you do get those.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's barely even scratching the surface, especially with the green cards in this set. Terra Symbiosis, drawing you cards when you put +1 counters on stuff. And speaking of +1 counters, Matt's going to flip out when I whisper this card again. Ouroboros is not-so card.
Ouroboros led to one of my favorite experiences of playing in a game with the both of you, where I had Ouroboros and like a few counters on it, and it got so hard to manage, I just grabbed a bag of dice and dumped on the table and said, that's my counters.
Yes.
Because that was easier to do than it was actually like counting out all the math. Ouroboros and Terra Symbiosis, performers of the year. Like I did not think that they were going to be near as great as they are, but man, those cards, so powerful.
exponentially putting more and more counters on each of your creatures for however big or board is, which then continues to grow turn after turn. Like, Matt, you did dump a bag of dice on there. I don't think it was enough dice. I truly don't think it was enough dice. You were supposed to have thousands of dice with how powerful exponentially that
it was.
got. Yeah,
oh man, it was silly to watch.
And I will also put this note out there too about Terra Symbiosis. Not only is it a great card, it also has a bit of a skill check baked into it. Like I've noticed you have to pay attention. Like, okay, what is the sequencing I want to do this to maximize how many cards I'm going to draw? And that does matter a lot of times in +1 counter decks because it only triggers the first time each turn. So I have found that like it's a fun little mini game that you start playing too. Like, okay, I want to make sure I do this in this sequence because I'll draw 4 cards instead of 2 because I'm going to get 4 counters if I do it this way versus the inverse. In a way you normally wouldn't pay attention to. Well, it makes you do some sequencing work, and I enjoy that, where like you have to pay attention to get the most out of a card.
Yeah.
I feel that way about station.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You have to crew, quote unquote, you have to station things at sorcery speed on your turn, which means judging when you can have your defenses, your shields down a little bit.
Sure.
A bunch of the other cards as well from the precons, Patrolling Peacemaker, Insight Engine, giving you more and more counters, and Insight Engine in particular, also being able to draw more and more cards as you continue to proliferate. Like, there were extra toys for archetypes that we kind of felt were already like pretty well explored, like Proliferate and Land Sacrifice stuff, but we got new toys that really reinvigorated a lot of energy towards them, which again, I did not expect to love this set. And yet, as I look over all of the cards, I'm like, oh yeah. And then I look at the next one, I'm like, oh yeah. And I look at the next one, I'm like, dang. Like, I keep having those moments. I feel like I'm going to be discovering cards from this set for years on end because that's just how much depth there actually is to it.
Well, speaking of depth too, like there's 2 of the more powerful uncommons from the year even in this set. There's Weftstalker Ardent, and then there's Umbral Caller Zealot, which both of those are silly powerful in the right decks. Like they both deal with, getting artifacts. Weftstalker Ardent is about getting them on there, which like it's an impact trimmers, but counts artifacts. That gets out of hand so quickly.
Quite.
On the other side though, Umbral Caller Zealot, where you get to sacrifice a creature or an artifact, and then you surveil one every time you do that. That's an easy way to fill up your graveyard really quickly with all the treasures and clues and all those different tokens out there that happen to be artifacts that you might want to be sacrificing. Both of those cards are just incredibly powerful for just being random uncommons that people are going to forget about because all these big, powerful mythics and rares that just were chock full in this set.
Well, Solar Array managed to make Sunburst cool and like useful and fun in a game. And it, again, kind of a skill check. Like it creates a situation where you're like trying to figure out how to best utilize your mana. And okay, if I'm playing in a Selesnya deck, but if I tap Solar Array for a blue, I can get an additional colored mana for Sunburst to put the additional counter on the thing. And like it creates a little fun sub game. It's a cool card and makes you have to like think about how to maximize it. Again, I just love that kind of thing.
Yeah, Exalted Sunborn, another like thing, doubling your tokens. Bailoff Prime for sacrificing. Sorry, we could just keep going and going about Like, point is, this is not a set that any of us expected to really like. Like when we saw the sets that were being announced, we were like, I don't know, sci-fi. How's that going to mix with a high fantasy setting? Turns out they did it beautifully. A really, really wonderful thing. And were it not for the huge, stiff competition that the rest of this year contains, with stuff like Tarkir Dragonstorm, with stuff like Final Fantasy, it might have been the best set of another year. But it's amongst such terrific competition. So I'm just going to keep looking through it and finding more and more and more as years go by.
It feels like it's going to be a Baldur's Gate type of set for a lot of players where you're going to go back to it and like, oh yeah, that card is really good and makes a lot of sense here. And Final Fantasy a little bit too for finding all of the less glamorous cards. But Edge of Eternities too, like you're going to be finding gems for a random deck that you build 2 years from now because it just like has so many really, really good cards in it.
I like that characterization a lot. Well, we've gone over a whole bunch of stuff so far, but now I think it's important that we take a quick pause to talk about some other types of data here. Let's challenge the stats real quick, you guys. There are a whole bunch of cards that we think are either over or underplayed, so we'll mention a couple of those before we get back to the rest of the sets of 2025. Guess what? Our favorite deck builder, Archidect, just released a really cool new feature, uploading custom cards. A lot of folks like to homebrew or invent cards for house rules or just test out their own game designs, and Archidect now has a place where you can customize your own card, name, cost, types, text box, and put it right into your deck, where it will be treated just like any other card would. You can make a card that is totally blank or upload your very own custom image of your custom card. And yes, when you make your designs, not only will they count towards all of your deck's stats, such as is tracking things like your mana curve, your pips, your types, to make sure that all of the stats of your deck are accurate, to make sure you're getting the very best deck information, but also all the designs that you invent or upload are usable in the Architect playtester, which is of course the very best playtester in the biz. What's really exciting is that this new feature has also laid the groundwork for Architect to support uploading alters of cards too, so if you want to upload your own custom images of pre-existing cards, the fine folks at Architect have even more stuff cooking, so let them know if that's something that you'd like to see in the future. Check out our deck lists at architect.com/EDHRECast to keep up with all of our brews, and try making your own custom cards while you're at it. That's archidekt.com/EDHRECast. This video is sponsored by Commander Rules Deck. Listen, Commander is the greatest game in the world, but it's also complicated. Every playgroup has common questions. The steps of combat, or layers, or how priority works, or what protection means. Rules Deck is a quick reference deck of rules cards that will help you immediately, easily reduce all confusion around weird rules edge cases, and avoid any disputes about how things are supposed to work. It's designed like premium TCG cards, portable and intuitive, and they save you a lot of time having to look up forums, or Reddit posts, or the sheer block of text that is the comprehensive rulebook, or all of those things that can slow down or break up the flow of Commander games, so that you can just get right back to the fun. Check them out at the link in the description. Get Rules Deck to upgrade your game night.
My challenge this week is for the card Quirion Druid from listener Arnaud Gompers, who writes the From the Brim to the Trim and Branching Out series at EDHREC. And Arnaud has a suggestion here. Quirion Druid is from way back in Visions, 2 and a green for a 1/2. For a green, you can tap it, and target land becomes a 2/2 green creature permanently. This land still counts as a land. And the suggestion here is for Joey's favorite, Baby Lasagna. Gives you the ability to turn a land into a creature, therefore meeting 2 of the 3 categories you want in terms of sacrificing creatures to maximize your turn. And it's only in right now about 5% of the Baba Lasagna decks. And creature that gets you there and can also be used like in response to someone board wiping or something, and you could just turn their biggest land into a creature, or best land into a creature, so it gets wiped as well. It's a lot of utility for a very cheap card. I think it's actually a good match for that deck, and I think it should see more play. I'm with you, Arno. Good call.
For my Challenger stats, I want to talk about Shrines and Enchantress decks. There's a new Heibai Shrine Commander, Heibai Forest Guardian, which gives us another option for Shrines decks separate from just Goshintai of Life's Origin. And I noticed that in Enchantress decks like this one, the card Jukai Naturalist is showing up in 50% of Heibai decks here. That's a 2-mana 2/2 Selesnya enchantment creature with lifelink that reduces the cost of your enchantment spells by 1 generic mana. However, the card Inquisitive Glimmer, which is a 2/3 Azorius enchantment creature, also for 2 mana, that reduces the cost of your enchantments, and also your room unlocks by 1 generic mana, but the room unlocks won't be relevant here. It also has the same effect, reducing your enchantments by 1 mana, but that one only shows up in 20% of these decks. Meanwhile, the card Herald of the Pantheon shows up in 30%. That is also a 2-mana creature that discounts your enchantment cost by 1, but crucially, that one is not actually an enchantment creature like the other 2 are. And those cards being enchantments matters a lot to trigger all of your enchantresses so that you can keep drawing cards, or increasing the potency of your Sphere of Safety effects, stuff like that. I think in multicolor enchantress decks like this one, Inquisitive Glimmer should go higher to meet the likes of Jukai Naturalist, and I think the Herald of the Pantheon should not have a higher play rate than Inquisitive Glimmer. So look for these cost reducers that are also themselves enchantment creatures, and if you want one of those effects, consider playing the other one also. That is going to be my challenge.
Well, I'll get us wrapped up real quick this week with my challenge, and I'm going to target not just one of the most popular commanders of the set, not just one of the most popular commanders of this year even. It is already in the top 100 of the most popular commanders in the past 2 years, and that is Fire Lord Azula. That is one of the new Grixis commanders that's all about firebending, but also one of your cast spells, while Fire Lord Azula is attacking, you copy that spell, and you can choose new targets for the copy. Now, if you look at the typical deck, they're talking a lot about putting cards in there that are enabling flash, so giving everything flash, whether it's High Fate Trickster, whether it's Vidalcan Orrery type of effects. There's a lot of in there, and I think you only need 1 or 2 in the deck. Like, play more Instants. That's a really good one. And Joey, you did a really good video a couple of weeks ago breaking down and challenging the stats, really getting a deep dive into Fire Lord Azula. But there's one card that I think is still being overplayed, and it's at best, it's like the 5th or 6th best flash enabler, but it's one that actually I think is very, very dangerous to be playing, and that is Tidal Tidal Barracuda. It is 3 and a blue for a 3/4 fish that says any player may cast spells as though they had flash, and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So I understand the appeal of this. It's a flash enabler that also keeps players from doing things on your turn. A little bit of a protection built in there. But giving your players flash to operate on 2 other players' turns seems like such a bad proposition. I do not like that. It's just one of those things that, there's group hug cards out there. This one is probably one of the more dangerous types to be doing, where you're giving players a really, really valuable ability to play things at instant speed. So if you are looking for flash enablers in Firelord Azula, there's so many better options. There's only 17% of decks that are doing it currently. This shouldn't be one that you're including, unless it's one that you just happen to be having around. But Tidal Barracuda seems like a super dangerous proposition to be putting into your Firelord Azula decks, especially when you just want to play the leanest and most efficient ways, or just a really, really powerful instant spell that you're going to spend all your mana on anyway. So if you're building Firelord Azula, stay away from Tidal Barracuda.
Thank you, Matt, for the kind words about that video. Everybody, the link will be in the description for that. It's an upping the average for the Avatar Commanders. So if you want to upgrade a bunch of those decks, check that one out. It was a fun time.
Challenge of Stats has been brought to you by Cardsphere, the best way to turn your unplayed cards into played cards. I am putting together a deck for someone for a Christmas present, and I was missing about 20 cards I wanted. I listed them all on Cardsphere, and about a dozen were on their way to me before the end of the night that night, and the rest got sent out the next day. So like every single card I needed for that deck that I put on Cardsphere was sent to me within about 24 hours.
Yeah, I also had a bunch of cards get sent to me. I built a couple bracket 1 decks, and those cards came in like 8 hours later. People were picking them up to send to me. It's so great. So if you want to check out Cardsphere for yourself, head to cardsphere.com/EDHRECast and get started trading today.
Heck yeah. Okay, guys, so we just had a really bright, amazing run of 3 sets, Dragonstorm into Final Fantasy into Edge of Eternities. Now, though, we are going to move into the lowest spot of the year, and I don't even just mean that based off of our own personal sentiment, I do also mean that based off of the data. The next set in chronological order this year was Marvel's Spider-Man. The number 1 commander from this set was Norman Osborn / Green Goblin, with not even 10,000 decks to its name here. You might also know this one as Fleam, which some people will like better than the Green Goblin skinning on this. The number 2 commander was Cosmic Spider-Man, a 5-color all your Spider-Mans can go here, with about 6,000 decks to its name. Lower numbers because, yes, we're on the latter half of the year, but even the other sets that we're going to see that rounded out the year have higher numbers than both of these. This was a set that was received with sort of mixed enthusiasm, unfortunately, and that is reflected in some of the numbers that we see.
Yeah, it was. It makes sense in hindsight. This was originally not supposed to be a draftable set. It was supposed to be a kind of just small thing, similar to when we got the Assassin's Creed set last year. Mm-hmm. And it was expanded at the last minute out into a draftable set, and feels like that.
Which is a bummer. Yeah.
I don't want to be too harsh in my criticism, but there's a lot of things in the set that feel like last minute additions to be able to bulk it out to be the appropriate size to actually make a draft environment. And like you can tell.
Yeah, it very much felt like they had a lot of legendary creatures in mind that they wanted to show off, but they didn't know how to actually make it a real draftable set. There's a lot of the commons and uncommons in this just feel so, oh yeah, we need something like this. Like the hot dog cart. I know we kind of became a meme, but having a hot dog cart just flavorfully on a Magic card, I think it really resonated with players. This doesn't fit. And what are we doing here? Because yes, all the legends, they make a lot of sense. At the high end, Spider-Man feels like a cool set. Norman Osborn was a really cool legend. The Cosmic Spider-Man people were excited about. At the top end, yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. But there's not going to be a bunch of commons, uncommons people come back 2 years from now. The depth of this set is what you see is what you get.
It also, unfortunately, for a lot of the legends, there being so many Spider-Man this, Spider-Man X, Spider-Man Y, Spider-Man Z.
Yeah.
For me, it became a little bit difficult to piece apart what makes these mechanically have that exact ability when a lot of those characters have fundamentally similar movesets. It became difficult for me to parse out individual things that I could really attach myself to a certain character.
Yeah. Yeah.
An interesting thing that we notice as well with the most popular cards from the set, the number 1 card from the set is the Soul Stone, which is nearly an $80 card or something right now. The 2 mana rock in black that is indestructible, and you can harness it to try and get creatures back from your graveyard. I think a lot of people were very excited about this and what it means for future storytelling, I suppose. But for me, even though I play a lot of black, I've never felt like I need to go and get this one. I think maybe one of the most interesting cards to go into the 99 actually ends up being Electro Assaulting Battery, purely because of the firebending stuff that we were about out to get a little bit later. So this one became
Yeah.
like important in retrospect, sort of. But yeah, looking over a lot of the cards that can go into the 99, well, I think there are a couple of cards that I do think are a little bit potentially even underrated. Unfortunately, it still felt difficult to find the precise homes that I wanted to find for them.
Well, and also too, it's kind of telling that the number 3 most played card in the set is a functional reprint of Evolving Wilds. That to me is kind of not a very good sign, because if you need your 3rd Evolving Wilds next to the all the other variants that we have going on around there, that's not a really good sign. And like there's some fun creative cards, I guess, but man, like going into the 99, I'm not impressed with the depth here at all.
I do think, like we've mentioned, Hide on the Ceiling is kind of a neat mass blink spell. That's kind of neat. I'm a fan of Villainous Wrath, a 5-mana destroy all creatures and also make someone lose life.
Yeah.
Sort of another version of Deadly Tempest.
I mean, Gwenum's a good card. I liked Imposter Syndrome. I've got it in 2 decks and has always overperformed. It's been a really good card so far. But the amount of cards I have things to say about compared to other sets, the whole thing just has a very much like a vibe of that paper you finished in the hallway before class was about to start as you're like, quick.
Whoa.
That's just the vibe I got from this set, and I feel like it permeates everything about it.
Yeah, and I feel bad too, because we talk a lot about how like it's a really, really hard job being in the design team for Magic. And I feel bad that we're kind of ragging on this. And like there's people out there like this is their favorite set. Sure. I fully know that like when I enjoyed Homelands as a kid, I am in the minority. Like I like something that like overall was just very unpopular. That's kind of the same thing going on here. Like some people are going to have very fond memories of Spider-Man, but far and away, it just was a complete miss because like Dana, I hate like it was really accurate. Like it felt like, yeah, you got the first half of your paper done at home and it's really good, but then you forgot to finish it. So you're doing it walking into class. And so there's a very clear line of like, this was good. Oh, you ran out of ideas, and we can tell right here.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm still reeling from that read, Dana. That is devastating. That is withering. Let me never be on the receiving end of any of your shade there. That was incredible. And like, again, it isn't just about like, oh, how personally we're feeling. It is reflected in the data that this did not reach quite as many players.
Yeah. The
numbers just are lower here than for any other set this entire year. So that is sort of a thing that we see.
Yeah, not a single commander broke 10K.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's just the numbers. They tell quite a story here. That moves us to technically the last set of the year, but not the last thing we're going to talk about in this episode. But now we move to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I'm going to try so hard to not be super biased. I have an Avatar tattoo. Like, I'm very connected to this. I was predisposed to loving this, even if it was bad. But thankfully, it wasn't bad. Thankfully, it's actually a really dang good set. We know that the number 1 commander from this set, Matt, you mentioned it in Challenger Stats, is Firelord Azula. Grixis commander copying your spells during combat. The number 2 commander is Toph, the First Metalbender, doing artifacts and land stuff in Naya. That was the number 1 commander for a while until Firelord Azula just started to zoom past it. But there are a lot of very interesting commanders from this set. I was predisposed to loving this one, as I mentioned. How do you guys feel about Avatar? How is it making you feel here at the end of the year?
I'm probably less excited than most people about it. I think it was a really good set with a lot of good singles. I don't have a connection to Avatar as an IP, so like never watched the show or anything. So I don't have even like the little bit, like I have played a handful of Final Fantasy games. So it made me like Final Fantasy more and want to watch and play more of the games. I have no connection to this, so it didn't reinforce anything. It didn't make me want to watch the show. Just because I don't have a connection to it. So there's that aspect for me that I wasn't hooked in by. And again, comparing it to Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy sets had a wide variety of cards doing a lot of different things. And it was still a pretty good draft environment. But there was just such a broad swath of card abilities and stuff versus here. I felt like, well, if I don't have a deck doing land stuff, none of the earthbending cards really do much for me. The firebending stuff kind of wants you to build a firebending deck to really take advantage of it. Like none of those really helped any of my decks. So in terms of singles, because of the focus on the specific mechanics, it also didn't go as wide as some of the previous sets. I like it and think it was interesting. It just didn't for me connect in any of the ways that Final Fantasy did.
Okay.
Yeah. As a fellow non-Avatar Airbender enjoyer fan person, it was. I could see what they were trying to do, and I see why you like it so much, Joey.
Yeah.
To me, it's still in that same realm as a neophyte to the IP. But man, it still is up there, I think, towards like the Dragonstorm type of sets for the year. Like there's some really interesting commanders. They're doing some cool new mechanics, and the cards in the set as well. There's a lot of really fun cards. Like I've been really, really impressed every time that I see airbending on a card. And I think I have a bunch of cards. Like I haven't had a chance to play since I've gotten the cards. But man, I'm really excited to play with Avatar's Wrath. That card reads so stinking cool for several of my decks. And Appa, like I understand why people are doing this. And like I know there's a bunch of characters, the same vibes that I have for Final Fantasy with all the legends. I know, Joey, you feel the exact same way because it's like, oh, and this person's there, and this person's there, and here's this thing they did on some card. I just think even all those things aside, there's some really fun and cool designs on there just like that make for good Magic cards that don't need the IP even to succeed.
Matt, the Avatar's Wrath card that you mentioned, that one is incredible. I've played against it. I've played it. Airbending stuff and then stopping your opponents from rebuilding from that airbending for a turn. That card is a blowout and probably one of like the cards of the year for me. I really like it. For some other quick numbers, the card Redirect Lightning is the number 1 card from this set. That is a variant of a Bolt Bend effect. But I actually want to point out that the number 2 card is Bender's Waterskin, which is a mana rock that untaps every turn and it taps for colored mana. Don't sleep on that one, people.
That's really good.
Also a really good card.
Yeah.
Notably, Badgermole Cub and Wan Chi Tong are really expensive cards, really fantastic. Badgermole Cub earthbends and will help your creatures tap for extra mana. Wan Chi Tong can draw you a bunch of extra cards. I think that those would be much higher in the rankings for this set, were it not for the fact that they are so expensive. That's definitely suppressing their numbers right now.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of intrigue with the direction of design here. I've also really enjoyed this mechanically. Like Earthbending has been a total joy for me. I built an Avatar Kyoshi deck because I love the challenge of having a high mana commander like her, or like Ozai Phoenix King. It's a 7 mana commander that gets super powered if you hold a bunch of red mana in reserve. Like these things are they're really hitting for me. But Dana, I absolutely do hear you about the critique of these cards feeling more niche than other like standout cards this year, because like for firebending you do have to really care about firebending to make that mechanic work really well in your favor. Like there are aspects of that are more niche or more parasitic to like fully have to build around or fully commit an entire deck to. Your critique there is really astute. Like I'm not going to defend against that. I can't deny it. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, I think there are also criticisms that are unique to me. Like if somebody told me that they thought Marvel Spider-Man was the best set of the year and they wanted to debate that, I could come up with points about why I think they're incorrect. If someone told me that they thought Avatar was the best set of the year, even though I don't think it is and it didn't work for me, I'm not going to argue because like I understand why someone would think that.
Sure.
So even though like the things missed me, like Matt said, I can 100% see why it connected with a lot of people. There's a lot of great stuff there.
Yeah, well, I also think, Joey, you don't need to really defend the cards in the set, really, because it does a really good job of defending itself. Like, there's just a lot of fun designs in there anyways. Like, even stuff like Faded Firepower is kind of that fix to that type of card where it's the damage doublers, the damage increasers. It's got that dictate cycle type of effect where it has flash. So you can flash it in and hold that mana up and still make sure you're going to get your mana value worth out of that. There's a lot of just really cool designs playing around stuff that like we've seen before, but it's just a slight play that A, makes it unique, but also B, makes sure that it fits within the world that it's supposed to be happening in the world of Avatar. I think that's really, really clever. I really like just so many of these cool, fun designs. And again, airbending is just like that mechanic is so fun. So just the way they found a way to express all the different flavor of the characters into the card mechanically. It's a really, really well done execution. And so like, as much as we wanted to harp on the design team for Spider-Man, how it kind of feels like they didn't do their homework, they absolutely did for Avatar.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to make sure we give them credit about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For me, this is ending the year on a really, really high note. I feel like this set has that same Edge of Eternities quality where I'm going to keep exploring and finding some more gems over the course of several years. Like just remembering that, oh yeah, this is the set where allies were back. Or, oh yeah, they made lessons a relevant type to build around here. Or they gave shrines a newcomer commander for people who don't just always want to play Go Shintai. Or, hey, Iroh T-Master is a really cool new spin on gift-giving commanders. Or like the Cabbage Merchant, I think is really being slept on because like it's a really cool card that can give you potential mana as your opponents are casting non-creature spells. Like all those little things. But I digress. Like, I can totally understand why this set would not be everyone's taste in tea. But hot damn if I'm not just personally absolutely loving it. And I also feel like the designers loved making it too. Like, I feel like that comes through in the card design. I do still want to be clear, though, that like I still 100% would name Final Fantasy as the set of the year. I'm just noting that Avatar was just my personal favorite one.
I think you could have a good faith argument that Avatar could be somebody's favorite set of the year, or the best set of the year even. Like favorite is subjective, but like best set of the year, there's a real argument out there that Avatar could be that.
Yeah. And like it's the set that I've spent the most money on personally. But, you know, in terms of like set of the year.
as a newlywed, I cannot say on a recorded line how much money I spent on Final Fantasy. I mean, I do have the holiday scene boxes behind me, and those were hard enough to get, and that's not even counting all the decks that I've built. So I'm gonna stay quiet on that one.
That's so funny. So, fellas, those were the sets and the biggest commanders of this year. To recap for everyone, we had Hashiton with 19,000 decks at rank 42. Teval, almost 22,000 decks, landed at rank 24. Ishtola, number one commander of the year, that got 27,000 decks, hit rank number 11, almost cracking the top 10 commanders of the past 2 years. Kudos. There was Hearthhole at 14,000 decks, that hit rank 81. Green Goblin at 9,300, that one was only at rank 182. That was actually the only set to not have any legends hit the top 100. And Firelord Azula with 14,000 decks and climbing, she landed at rank 79. Those were the number one commanders from each set of the year. And of course, there were also other standout commanders like Vivi and Toph in those sets as well that also occupied top spots within the top 100. Quite an impactful year. Do you have any final observations you want to make about these numbers? Do you think this was a good year of commander sets? Which set do you think had the biggest impact on 2025?
I mean, I can't in good faith say anything other than Final Fantasy after how much I raved about it when earlier in the show. It was super good, and like there was a lot of really, really good sets here though. Like it really felt that every set that was released this year, it was either an 8 or better. Like it was very, very good and successful. Or was it 2? It was just something that was kind of forgettable and below. So like you had the Spiderman, you had the Aetherdrift, which like I didn't resonate with at all. But then everything else was just great. It was absolutely a contender. And like every one of them, like I said, Avatar Last Airbender could have been the best set of the year. I think Dragonstorm, I think Edge of Eternities all have really good arguments too. But I have to give it to Final Fantasy. It's so good. It did so many things. I love the set, and it might have been an all-timer, honestly.
Dana?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know how I could in good conscience pick anything else. The thing I loved about Final Fantasy, and I talked about this with the Avatar comparison, where there's specific mechanics for Avatar. Final Fantasy felt like they just sculpted every card to reflect the character from the game, and there was no concern about like we need to have X amount of this mechanic in the set or X amount of this mechanic in the set. They just made cards that match characters and made them all interesting and felt like, and that for me is it feels so bespoke kind of that is why it hit with me. And I'll say it again. We've all said it. Not a bad thing to say about Dragonstorm or Edge of Eternities or Avatar. Great sets, but Final Fantasy was just so good. Like I can't pick anything else.
Yeah, it's hard to justify anything other than Final Fantasy as the set of the year. Personally, Avatar is the one that I've built the most from. I will continue to build from the one that I've spent the most money on, all that. And I think that we'll continue to find stuff from there too. But also, like, Edge of Eternities, I'm going to call like a sleeper hit of the year. But Tarkir Dragonstorm is like really, like, there's so much heart to it that I feel like, yes, this is what I want Magic sets to be. And then also Final Fantasy is just like like holy whoa. This set must be revered for that. So overall though, Matt, I love your characterization there of like a lot of the sets this year were like 8s and higher. A couple of speed bumps. We did see a couple of those, but for the most part, what strong entries we got for Commander. Yeah. Like whoa.
It feels really like a continuation of last year a little bit too. Like when we did the show last year and we talked about, man, this was a really good set. Man, this was a really good set. That one really stunk. But man, this was also a really good set. Like, because last year we had Foundations, we had Duskmourn that like I think was kind of an Edge of Eternities type of set where like, oh yeah, that's it. Actually, like was pretty good.
Yeah, Sleeper Hit.
Then you have Bloomburrow, which was a fantastic universes within type of set. And then like, oh yeah, there's Thunder Junction. There was Aetherdrift. Like that type of pattern also kind of repeated this year where like you had some really, really high highs, but then some like real okay lows.
Yeah, exactly how I feel. The difference between the things that really hit and the things that I felt like didn't was a pretty big difference. But the things that hit outnumbered the things that didn't for me by a pretty significant margin, and that's good to see that a couple years in a row.
Yeah. Got the brain a whirring, got us all a brewing.
Yeah.
Quite a time. I think we all had a bit of a time of our lives with at least one set over the course
built
of
a lot of decks this year, just across the board.
Yeah. And again, don't tell our spouses how much money we spend on this game. All right. But yeah, it's nice to take a look over the year, see the commanders that made it to the top. Listeners, we're very curious if there are any commanders that were not in the top that you think were also like huge standouts from this year. And of course, tell us what you think the set of the year was or what your favorite set of this year was, because it was really good pickings. It was a really good time. 2025 did commander
really good year.
A whole lot of good, for sure. A couple of weird spots, but also a couple of amazing spots. So it was fun to relive a whole lot of that over the course of this year and kind of end on this really fantastic high note. I think with that, though, you guys, we're going to call this episode to a close. So if our listeners would like to get in touch with us, where is it that they can find us online? Matt?
So you can find me on pretty much any social media platform like Instagram or whatever else tickles your fancy at Mathimus55. That's Mathimus 55. And we are still proud to be going into next year working with Dragon Shield. If you need some of the best ways to protect your cards, some of the best art to put on those sleeves, head over to dragonshield.com and use code EDHREC to get yourself a 5% discount. And again, going into 2026, Black lives still absolutely matter. So make sure if you need help, reach out and ask for help, because it's so important going into the new year.
And Dana, how about you?
And I'm Dana. You can find me online at Dana Roach. I'm writing articles for EDHREC and doing some social media for Architect.com. And you can find all of us together at patreon.com/EDHRECast.
And you can find me everywhere online, from Instagram to Blue Sky at Joseph M. Schultz. And you can find the cast online at EDHRECast, or send us an email, maybe a challenge of stats of your own, at EDHRECast@gmail.com. Heads up, listeners, we're going to take a break next week, just a week off between the Christmas and New Year holidays. We still have a couple of little things that will be going out on the channel in the meantime, but we just wanted to mention that we're going to take that holiday week off. We also hope that you're enjoying the new Lift scores that we just introduced on the website last week. Tinker around with those and keep the feedback coming. Thank you so much for all of your input about it. We'll be back at you next year with more data and insights. But until next time, remember, EDHREC your deck before you wreck your deck. Wahoo!